Yeah.
So we'll continue.
Yeah.
We'll continue with some HTML slides, and we'll see how much we can cover today. We'll finish it next time if we cannot finish it this time.
So let Christina know if what she's explaining you're already all familiar with, because then we can judge all things.
Yeah. So I wanted to start by covering some basic concepts, which is quite important when you are in search for a job, that you know what roles there are within a team at a company that does web development. So do you guys know what front end means? What a front end developer is?
Front end is the thing we saw on the screen, and as a viewer, the website, something which is done, the coding and stuff, but we see the result.
Yeah. Do you guys agree with that definition?
Yeah.
Do you want to add or change something?
The backend is the type of data that goes back to the server.
Front end is like everything that we are doing that seems we can see on the screen. That's called front end, like HTML, CSS, and we can also say JavaScript and some kinds of that. And backend is like that that we cannot see that like database. We getting data from database, but we don't see database. But we still have like our data, everything there. And there are some kinds of special programming language for backend, like PHP, like other language we can use. And the frontends has their own technology. As I mentioned, there's CSS, HTML, like this, and backends others.
Right. So yeah. So if we want to take a practical example, if you see a form on a website. Right? So the way the form looks, whatever you type in there, the way the submit button looks, what happens to the submit button when you hover on your mouse, what happens to it when you click on it, what happens to the form if it disappears, if it displays a success message, all that's front end, right? That's handled by the HTML, the CSS, the JavaScript, and whatever happens to the data that you have written inside the form, how that gets stored, how that gets manipulated, that is the backend part. So yeah, like you said, the databases and all that, that's the backend. So what we're gonna cover, well, mostly Attack Your Future, and what I personally know best is front end. I know that some of you guys have some experience with more backend-like things, and I guess the more broad your perspective is, the better, because the more you will understand of how web development works. And then, have you guys heard this concept full stack before? Do you know what that means?
Full stack is a web developer that can do both, can do backend and front end.
Yeah, it's pretty vague, I would say, because full stack, actually both front and back end and full stack means something different in different companies. So there is not like one official definition. It is very fluid, but yeah, full stack is normally a person who can do both front end and back end. Some companies call a full stack a developer who does JavaScript, but JavaScript that's both front end and back end. So it's pretty fluid.
You can also see in Hack Future, when we are, for example, finishing with our final project, we become as a full stack developer. It means that we have covered front end and back end.
Yeah.
All of them with
because
so we can do both again.
Well, yeah, Node.js and databases, that's part of the backend. Yeah. So, but I mean, most front-end developers know a little bit of backend, and most backend developers know a little bit of front-end.
Yeah.
So it is hard to different or separate it so much. All right, so what's
It
this?
also depends on people's interest because, like you said, in Hack the Future you can learn both, but some
Yeah.
people maybe just prefer, like you say, like you do
Yeah.
front end and other will prefer back end, and then you specialize a bit more, but then you know something about
Yeah.
the other. So.
Yeah, and also like within front end, there are so many different like what's called scales or like parts of the front end that you know or that you're interested in. Like I'm the frontest part of front end. I'm almost jumping into UX and design a little bit, and then I have some colleagues who don't know that much or don't care that much about the minute details of the front end that I do, but they are much more like much better experts at like the more full stack like part of front end. So yeah, it's very interest dependent, and also what a company needs you to do. So it is often like you get good at the stuff that the company needs you to be good at, right? All right, so designer and the UXer. What do you know? Do you guys know what that means? What's a UXer?
UX experience.
User experience expert, yes. And what do they do?
I mean, for my time in advertising in the US, we were doing, I was on the interactive team, and we were doing, that time it's called GUI, graphic user interface for websites for Citibank and GE.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what the UXer does now, because you design, you think about what's on the page, and you think about the functionality, what happens when you click this button, and where does that make sense to click this button and have that page load up, or when you submit this, what you get back from it. So I think that's the it's a mix of development and designer, sort of like you put yourself in the seat of a user. You develop the stuff, and then you put yourself, your mindset of a user. Okay, what happens? And then you start trying to break stuff, pretty much. You know, click here. Oh, that's not supposed to do that. I think that's my idea of what a UXer is now.
Okay, well, partly yes and partly no. Again, a UXer is a very fluid concept, and I've worked at companies who had designated UXers, and then they had some designers. I've worked at companies where it was a designer was both, and they were called art directors, and they were both UX and design. At the current company where I work at, I'm sort of a UX and front-end specialist, but we also have some product owners who decide what we should do with our website, and they are also doing some UX. And then our designer is also doing some UX. It is very fluid. What you were describing, whether stuff works or it doesn't, there's a role for that is called a QA, a quality assurance person, and they are basically testers. So they test all the functionality on your website through and see if it's working, and if it's not, then they will create bugs in the system where you have your tasks or whatever. But yeah, so designers, if we want to be very black and white, are the people who decide how something should look like. UXers are the people who decide how it should work like, what the user experience should be. So, for example, does it work better if your button sits on the left or the right side? Does it work better if your form has 10 fields or 2 fields? They look at what people respond best to. Sometimes they also use tools like A/B testing. So they will try 2 different solutions, and then there are some A/B testing software where you can, and you can also build it yourself, where you will serve 2 different versions of your website to random users, and they will put metrics, they will put numbers on how many people clicked on something specific that they are testing on in case A and case B, and then whatever worked better, they will use that solution. Like big companies like Facebook, for example, and YouTube and yeah, Twitter. All of these big companies are using A/B testing a lot for testing out new features. Cool. Do you guys have any questions, or should we move on?
Yes.
One. Okay. So very shortly, I want to show you what the flow within or the process within a company normally is. So you start by like figuring out what you want to do, right? You get an idea. I want to build a new feature. I want to have my website. I want my website to have a blog, for example. Then we plan out. Okay, we want a blog. What do we do? Then we ask our designer to design something. Then the production team is normally the developers. So we develop something. Then we have our testers, the QA, test something. Maybe do some user tests. Does this work? If it doesn't, then we go back to maybe planning and design and production phase, and then we test again. If it works better, then we launch, and then we're done. And then in the end, after we have launched, we have some maintenance and support. So if something goes bad, then our users can call support, and then we will create some maintenance tasks to fix these bugs and stuff like that. But I mean, again, the process of a company depends on the company so much. I've worked at companies where it was like a waterfall. So it was always like the product owners, and then the UXers, and then the designers, and then the developers, and then the testers, and then all that. And in my opinion, that doesn't work that well. The earlier developers are involved are the better, because sometimes we know of a technically cheap solution that the product owners or the designers don't know about. So they would like you to do something that is maybe super pretty, but it takes you 2 weeks to develop. But you know of another solution that would only take you 1 day, right? So if you're involved earlier on in the process, then sometimes your company can save a lot of money. So in my opinion, the best teams are the teams that collaborate from early on in the planning and discovery process. And when you get a job, I can recommend you to try to get that role. So if you explain it to your boss that the end result will be better and will probably be cheaper if you are involved earlier, then you will probably convince him. But also if you ask questions, so if you get a design maybe where you are just told that you should develop this, right? If you see something that is maybe expensive to develop, and when I say expensive, I just mean that it takes a long time, where you know of a better solution that would take a lot shorter and will be just as good, then let them know, because all companies want to save money, right? And they normally will award that sort of behavior if you take responsibility.
It's like agile methodology should be used, or it's some kinds of other.
Sorry.
Is it like agile methodology or?
Agile, yes. Agile methodology. Is that what you are asking?
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
The behavior that you are like saying about that, is it like agile methodology should be used?
Yeah. Well, agile, it basically means that you don't have a plan from day 0 until day 2000, where everything is planned ahead, but you like go back and find out that, well, we actually are gonna need a week more for this, and we want to build this feature before, so we adapt our plan along the way. Yeah, and I guess that's something that's really modern, or like something that companies use a lot these days, the agile methodology. Okay, is that clear? Can we move on? Okay. Yeah, so then we have these building blocks of web development, which are HTML and CSS and JavaScript, and these are the ones that will build your website. Yeah, of course, your website is also hosted somewhere by a web server, and you have a domain name wherever, which is the place where your website can be found. And to describe HTML versus CSS is HTML is basically your skeleton, right? It's we say where your head is, where your body is, where your foot is, right? And CSS we give it some skin. We tell it how it should look, and where the footer should be, and where the side content
I like
should
that
be.
analogy.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
And then if we wanted to add JavaScript, then JavaScript would be like, when is it that, yeah, exactly, movement. When is it that you should wave with your hand that CSS has styled, that HTML has built, right? Yeah. All right. So yeah, we have talked briefly about the structure. You guys know that the outermost element is the HTML, and then the two main chunks are the head and the body. And the head is basically where you specify the most important information about your page, like the title and links to your CSS and links to other stuff. But most of it is not seen by the user. It's information. The only thing that is seen is the title. But that's not even seen on your website. It's just on the tab. And then the body is the one that contains everything that is viewable by the users. Yeah, and then some most common elements are paragraphs and breakpoints and headings and lists, unordered and ordered, and anchors and image tags and divs. Do you guys know all of the body elements? Have you worked with them? Do you know all the formatting elements as well? Have you worked with those?
What is the queue?
A queue, it's used for a quotation. Yeah. A block quote is also used for a quotation. I don't know if there's a difference. You don't work with these that much.
As far as I know, the queue is when you want to code. It's like a one line.
Yeah.
But
and
the block code
is a multi-line. Yeah, that's very possible.
I remember the I was for italics, but it's no longer for italics now in HTML5. I forgot what
it is. I mean, it's
italics?
Yeah, but it is. They aren't really meaningful. Yeah, like you still have to give them some styling for them to work. So what you are referring to, I think, is that the I has is started to be used for icons.
Yes, that's correct.
Because it fits. It's an I, an I for an icon. But yeah, it can also be used for italics, and the same with the EM. Strong and B both are for bold. Yeah. Yeah, and that
emphasize is also kind of same as italic.
Yeah.
When you use the italic or emphasize AM,
yeah,
it shows same, but usually
Yeah.
you shouldn't use them for each other.
right. But you still normally need to style it yourself. Yeah, and then do you know what is special about the div and the span?
Yeah. The span, you can use it until an inline tag, whereas a div, you can use it on a block level tag.
Yeah. So what is the difference between a block level and an inline element?
An inline is it's a tag that is displayed in the website in one line, whereas a block, which is
It's like a block.
block by block.
Yeah.
Example of it is a P.
Let's try
It's an
to
inline, right?
let's
You
try to
can-
do some
Mhm.
a live example. So I'm just gonna do it like this. Okay. They do jokes now.
Yeah.
Wow.
I love
A
that.
lambda.
I love that.
Okay, so can you tell me an example of a block level element?
Like H1. It's a block level element.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, another one? Someone else? Another block level element?
A list. Yeah.
A list?
You can always see them below each other. An example of a inline is an image, because
Yeah.
you can set them side by side.
I'm just gonna say inline. So we say an image with a source of just gonna take an of course I meant an actual fruit, but anyway.
When you're on an Apple product, it only shows you.
There's a
Does it only happen on an Apple product?
No.
Okay, let's try. Oh, that was long. It was I think it was a bit, what's it called, 64. Yeah, anyway, base 64.
Isn't it code plan?
What are you saying?
Because I thought when we were doing the test, code plan wasn't supporting inserting images.
Oh, it actually does. I will try this link instead.
That's on Khan Academy.
That's also, why are they so long?
You're right.
That was better. All right, so now we have an image, and then you say if I have another one, what's gonna happen if I add another image after the first one? Yeah, after where? Under? Guess again. So the image tag, like you said, is an inline element. So it means that it will display under each other. So for example, can you tell me another block level element? A div?
Is it table also?
Yeah. A table is a table, but it's actually a display table. But yeah, also it's also block level. Also like a paragraph. They are also, so you can see all the block level elements. They will, well, first of all they will take up the whole width of the parent container, and then they will jump under each other. And inline elements like an image tag. Is there another one you can tell me? A span?
Span.
Yeah. They will. You see it. It will. And then if I add another span, it will again jump next to each other. So if I just save this and try to inspect, just to show you the width, you see that all block level elements, they will get the whole width of the container, which is the body currently, which has the whole width. If I inspect the inline elements, you see that they only take up the width of their natural width. So for example, what do you think will happen if I tell the body to be 100%, or sorry, 50% of the width?
Everything in the body just get 50% up.
Yeah. So you see, if now all the block level elements, they fill 50%, and that is because they don't have 100% of the viewport. They have 100% of the container, which is in this case the body, and that has 50%, right? And then the inline elements, they would just be next to each other if there's space. Like with the spans, there is space. With the two images, there isn't anymore, so they just jump down. Okay, that was a bit of the...
But what if you want them like on the down?
Yeah, so if...
Inline line.
Right, so if you... Let's just take the width away from the body. So for example, if I want my images to be under each other, right? Can someone tell me what I should do?
You use a break
the
tag.
display.
A break tag? Mm?
You should use the CSS element.
Mm-hmm.
Display none.
Display none?
Or no type.
I heard display block. So I can just change their display to block, right? So when I say block level and inline elements, that just means the default display is inline or block, but you can just change it. You can, if you want your, for example, div to be inline, then you can just say it should be inline. And then now you can see it because there's a block level element on after it. But if I sorry, in line, now the two things are next to each other because both of them are in line, right? Yeah, is that clear? Yeah, cool. Right. So let's continue. Yeah, so that's the title attribute. We have discussed that. Yeah, these are different HTML elements. It's my impression that you're sort of familiar with them, so that's good. Then yeah, that's the build-up of an image tag. You know what the source is used for, right?
Source.
What is the source?
It's the image, the URL address.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. So it should link to your image, right? The JPEG or PNG or whatever you have.
Christoph, we can do that with the picture in our own computer.
Yeah.
Is there a way that we can just do it? Usually, probably, for example, we should do it in the VS Code, right? When we are just making the website.
Yeah.
Will you show me later
How to
use the picture, which I have it in my hard drive in
Yeah.
my computer?
Yeah, sure. I will. Yeah, we have also discussed relative and absolute paths, right?
Yes.
So relative is only relative to the current file that you're looking at, and absolute paths will be the same from every location. Yeah, then the DOM, the document object model, is basically how browsers read and understand websites. So it's basically what we were inspecting over here. This is the DOM itself, right? So this tree structure, that is our DOM. Yeah, and each element here is called a node within the DOM. You're not seeing what I'm seeing, are you?
No.
Oh, you're okay. So each element in here is an element within the DOM, and yeah, I can't remember what I was saying before.
No.
Oh, they are each one. Each of them is a node within the DOM. Right. Yeah. So the difference between a previous version of HTML and the current one is that we have gotten some more semantic elements like the header and the nav and an article and the footer and sections. There's a lot of different stuff which will help screen readers and robots reading your page understand it better. So you can give your different sections more meaningful names of containers. So instead of using divs for everything, you can call it a header when it's a header, right? Yeah. So it is for search engines. It will help them identify where is your header in your page and what is the article content on this page and stuff like that. And if you don't use them, then you will get minus points from Google. So if you want to be first in search results, then you should use semantic HTML.
Chris, is there a lot of refactoring that current going on because of the HTML5? Because a lot of sites, like old sites, they're still
Well, I mean, HTML5 has been used at least since 2009. So it's been quite a while. When I started web development school in 2010, we started with HTML5. So yeah, there is a lot of old sites out there, but it's been going on, like they're refactoring for a long time. Yeah, there are. There's a couple of different HTML elements. Do you know what the difference between an article and a section is? Do you want to know?
Yeah.
Article and section is place.
Yeah. Yeah. So an article is normally something that makes sense on its own.
Yeah.
So if you take it out of the website, it should make sense on its own. For example, it could be a news article, right? That has a title and some content. And a section, it
Area, place.
Where we put article.
I'm curious to know.
well, so it wraps a section of your page, but it's not sure that it will make sense on its own. So an article is normally something bigger, something more independent. But
So I was thinking here. So
Yeah.
So a section could be a place where, let's say, for example, on CNN, they have like breaking news, a list of breaking news with small
Yeah.
little articles. So
Yeah.
you have a section of breaking news, and
Yeah.
within that section you have several small articles. They are, each one is
Yeah.
a new breaking news.
that's a
That's what you meant.
yeah,
I
that
think it's like
that could easily be.
It could also be like a direction for the place on our website.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what I thought about when you said place.
It could, like, sorry, okay, let's try to look at the page. We can look at the deco. So, for example, this area up here, that could be a section, right? Or, well, this would be, that would be an article. That could also be an article, but this spot displaying all of these three, that could maybe be a section. And then if you look at one specific page with one specific article, then it would normally have like one main article, which is this whole thing. And then article can also have sections inside. So it's not always the other way around, and it's not like one is bigger than the other. It's just whatever is meaningful in your current situation. But for example, all this gray section, that could also be a section where these could be articles. Yeah, but it's all of it is pretty fluffy. It's not like written in stone. Okay. Wow, we're almost done with HTML. Well done. Yeah. So, yeah, this one just talks about that you can you can have multiple headers and multiple navigations on your website. So your main header, where you have your logo and navigation and stuff like that, that should normally be wrapped inside a header. But you can also have, if you have a section on your website which has a header area and then maybe a main area, that could also be wrapped inside a header. So it's not because a header can only be used once on a web page. It should be used whenever it is a header. So you should just use your brains basically when you use these elements. Whatever makes sense, do it. And it's the same with the navigation. Okay, and yeah, it's the same with the footer. So if you have, for example, maybe an article that has a footer inside it, then you can use footer, and you can also use it for your main footer. And have you heard about this aside element? No. Yeah.
I think in your class I've heard about it.
Yeah.
It was like, is it also one of these block elements?
Yeah, it is something that just used to be a div in HTML4 that has been added in HTML5.
And also it works kind of like a float, right? You just move the...
No.
No?
And that's something you need to style. It is normally, so you have, if you have a web page where you have two columns, like something like a blog, you know, a good blog. I know this. Okay, I need to accept it again. This is one of the blogs that I use. So this is just a WordPress blog. So if you look at this one, then you see that this area in the middle where the main content is, that would probably be wrapped inside the main tag, and then whatever is on the right side, that could be wrapped inside an aside. So you have your main content and you have your less important, maybe some extra information, whatever type content. And it doesn't need to be on the side, by the way, but it normally is. And that's it. I don't know if...
You then have that below all the button? Like, where do you place it in your code, the aside, if you wanted to make a block like that?
Yeah, you would put it HTML-wise. You would put it under. So, for example, if you say, this is my website, and then of course I have my body, then in there I would have a main, and then I would have an aside, and then yeah, and then I would, in the main, I would maybe have an article where I would have like the page title, and then some paragraphs, right? Blah blah blah. And then that's my main content, and then I would have my side with some, I don't know, I would probably call it with an H2 and say side content and some other stuff in there.
But we can decide which side we want to
can
put our side, right?
Yeah, you can. So you see that if I don't use any styling, then it will just show up under each other. But if I say that, so now I have my body, and then I have a main, and then the side. So if we'll cover flex later on, but if I just say that the body should be display flex, then that will bring it next to it right away. And then if I say that it should justify content space between, then it will push it over to the other side. And then if I say that my main should flex grow 1, I know this is super cryptic, and I'm sorry about that. And then if I say that this should have a background of some gray, so you see that now my page, I don't know, I actually don't know if this works. Yeah, so you see that if I don't say it should be flex grow, then the page title will have a width of its natural width, and then the site content will have a width of its natural width. But if I tell the main, which is this part, to grow, then it will fill out all the available space, and it's like it's responsive. It just sees how much available space there is, and it will fill it out. So yeah, Flexbox is, you see that I wrote 3 lines of actual CSS, which is not selectors. So it is so simple and so nice when you learn to use it. So that's how you would have a main and a site. Okay, and that's HTML. I think we will go into more detail on CSS next time, because we are all pretty tired as I look around your faces. And you have mostly done the homework already for HTML weeks. If you haven't, then do it. If you have, then do it better. You know so much.
Yeah, I think maybe that was maybe nice to have a few like minutes to talk about exactly how to maybe deal with the homework, and also like the new of you haven't gotten any feedback really. As far as I know.
I finished all.
Yeah, you finished all, but you haven't had any feedback from
No. I did, what's his name?
Marco?
No, Marco, right?
Marco.
Yeah.
On the last one, actually, there was one thing that I made in a little bit of JavaScript, and he gave me feedback to try to find a solution CSS. So I did that, and that was the last I did.
Okay, very nice.
Okay.
Because I thought like that's maybe also something you should think a bit into like next week, of kind of how to get feedback maybe a little bit across some of the homework. But I don't know if it's possible. That was just the idea I had.
What if we pair people up? Could we do that?
Yeah.
So I think it would be nice if you guys reviewed each other's homework. So you could review Mohammed's, you could review Ricardo's, right? And sorry, I'm bad with names. And then you could review hers, and you could review his, and you could review hers, and then you could review hers, right? So we have a full circle. Maybe you can just write down the name of the person
I can
who.
maybe also make a little line to also include the people that are not. That I know.
Oh yeah. Do that.
Have, I think Bamboo and Howie is part of it.
And then what we should do is, if you have you seen this page before, which explains how you should hand in homework. Yeah.
Benjamin made a video, so.
Vi gør opmærksom på, at biblioteket overgår til selvbetjening om 15 minutter. Your attention, please. The library's unstaffed opening hours will start in 15 minutes.
Great. So now that we know that, here's a section on how you hand in homework. I have followed it myself. I found it super easy to understand. If you don't, let me know. Write in Slack, right? This page is. Have you been on the GitHub of Hack Your Future? So it's within HTML CSS. So you go to Hack Your Future Copenhagen, then you go to curriculum, then you go, I don't know if this is the easiest way, by the way. You go to HTML CSS, then you're in Hack Your Future HTML CSS. Then you go to week 1 and homework, and that's where we are. And then it explains how to hand in. So when you have done this, then you should end up with something like the following. I messed up. I called it something else than what Benjamin calls it, so don't follow me. But I called it HYF homework hand in. I think it should just be called HYF homework, but it doesn't really matter. And then in there, if you did it right, then you should end up with this structure. And then in HTML CSS, week 1 is where you should upload your homework, right? And then you should post this link to Slack.
Actually, there's a little more than that link, because you have you have to paste the preview. Actually,
the preview.
Yeah, you can look on Slack. I posted it. I think also what's the name?
GitHub preview. I think.
Yeah, there's a special link.
So when you click it, it will open directly the index HTML.
So you can
HTML preview.github.io. So you will just change your account name and.
I didn't know that. that existed.
Like this, if I change my name automatically, it will go to week 1 in my index HTML.
What? That's amazing. Can you post that link? Can you post a link to Slack?
Okay.
Perfect. So you should post that link, not what I said.
And all of you, like, have you done the homework in VS Code or in like kind of CodePen?
I use it on Notepad++, and then I'll just transfer it into CodePen.
Okay.
Right. So you should post your homework, and then you should review the person who you just got assigned to. And Marie, will you write that?
I'll make a little list
yeah.
so you know.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah. And then I will also try to review your homeworks.
And that's why
during
you post
the
them in
week.
Slack, so you can, each other can see when you have uploaded them, right?
Yeah.
So do both.
Yeah, and give feedback to each other, right? You can just write direct messages to each other, and be nice. Start with the positive. All right.
I have a question with the homework.
Yeah.
If I'm going to use 2 styling sheets, 2 CSS files,
Yeah.
and if I use this GitHub preview, it will not open directly.
Yeah.
So how do you check our assignment? Would you download it, or you would just automatically click on our GitHub profile?
That's a good question. So what I would do is I would go to your root of the repository, and then I would say download,
okay.
and then I would get the zip, and then I can see the whole thing, right? And then I can see all the files, all the images, everything, and then I can just, if I open this on my computer, that's the one that I made, then I can, it will work with the multiple CSS files.
Okay.
So that's why I asked you about using the picture in the profile
Yeah.
in the computer.
Yeah.
Because our first homework was about making the CV.